Hi, Liz here, and we are at EMO's Creative Studio, where anything you create is beautiful because you created it. And today, we are going to do a short tutorial on how to cut fabric. I'm going to go through very simple steps, show you the tools that I use, and suggest some tools that are relatively inexpensive for you to use. So, I have a pattern that is calling for me to have a piece of fabric that is 2.5 inches by 16 inches. So I don't want to be cutting from my large piece of fabric. This is probably a half a yard, and I don't want to waste it because I may need it for something. So in my stash, and the stash is pieces of fabric that are too big to throw away, I don't want to waste them, I found a piece of fabric that it might fit the sizes that I'm looking for. So the first thing I want to do is, I personally do not pre-wash my fabrics, but they usually come out really wrinkly, and I am not a fan of ironing. Now, let me tell you the difference between ironing and pressing. First of all, ironing is when you take your iron and you drag it across the fabric like this. Once your fabric starts to warm up, or the fabric threads start to warm up, you're actually stretching that fabric. And the cut piece of fabric, or the unit that you want to do, you may pull it out of shape. Pressing is when you take your iron and you just press it and maybe give it a shot of steam, up, down, very little movement, up, down, very little movement. Now, I'm not dragging my iron across the fabric like this. I'm just up, very little movement. Again, when the fibers warm up, they stretch. So now I've pressed my piece of fabric to get all of the folds and wrinkles out, and now it's ready for me to cut to the size that I need. So let's move over to the cutting table. So now we're at the cutting mat. The cutting mat can be different sizes. You want to make sure that you try to get a cutting mat that is self-healing, meaning that once you start cutting and making grooves in it, it won't make permanent cut marks. Now, you can get different sizes of mats if you are relatively on a budget, like I am right now. You don't have to spend a lot of money. This one is a 36 by 24. I have one that is 18 by 12. And then I have a littler one, or smaller one, that is a 6 by 8. Now, I want to cut this piece of fabric to about the size of 2.5 by 16. So this little blue one isn't going to help me. And because I want you to see what I'm cutting really well, I'm not going to use this one. But I wanted you to see the different sizes of cutting mats that I have, and that you don't have to get a big giant cutting mat. I've been sewing quilting for a while now, so I've collected all these items as I go along. All right, so the other thing you want to do is have a rotary, circular cutter. Now I have two. This is the one that I've been using for the past few years. I like it. First of all, let me tell you that I'm not endorsing any products, but I'll tell you what I use. This is an Alpha rotary cutter, and this is a 45 millimeter blade. It's not the big 60. I don't like that. That's hard for me to control. And then this one is another Alpha. Oh, this Alpha, I can either open it for right-handed or left-handed. I could turn it either way. One side is covered while I'm cutting. This one opens on both sides, so you have the greater possibility of cutting your fingers. I don't want to do that, so I am going to show you how to cut with both. Doesn't mean that I'm telling you that you need to go out and get one or the other. I'm just going to show you how you can use either one safely. Alright, so now I want to cut this piece of fabric 2.5 inches this way by 16 this way. I believe this is 16 and a half by the biggest part right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 and a half by 2 and a little over a half. So I know that this side is even because this is the selvage, S-E-L-V-A-G-E part, where it's the end of the fabric, and we talked about this in the previous video. So it's always important to make sure that your fabric is cut straight, because it will affect your unit or your product or your block. Now you can see right here that it's uneven. So I'm going to use one of these black lines to line up the fold, which is a natural line, natural straight line. I'm going to take one of my rulers, and I'm going to use a skinnier one because it's going to be easier for me to control and handle rather than a thick one. This one is a 2.5 by 12.5. This is a perfect size. My rulers have grips on the bottom so that the ruler isn't flipping around or moving around all over the place. So I want to cut my fabric to 2.5 inches. My ruler is 2.5 inches. I want to line one of the black lines to the fold, which is at the bottom of my fabric right here, and I want to make sure that the edge is lined up perfectly over here. I have 5 fingers on my hand, we all do. So I'm not taking a trip to the emergency room. I'm not putting my fingers or hands over here and hoping I don't cut. I'm going to move them as far away as possible and still be able to hold my ruler. So I'm going to put 3 fingers on the ruler and my last 2, my ring and my little finger, on my cutting board or my fabric. Doing it this way allows me to have better control. I'm going to use my 2-sided rotary cutter and only open the side that I need to cut. You always want to make sure that your blade is sharp because you want a nice, clean, sharp edge. I hold it up at an angle, I press down, and I slide across. Close your rotary and put it to the side, and you'll see that you have a nice clean cut right there. So I know that this strip is 2.5 inches wide. I'm not ready to start save little pieces into my stash like this, so I am going to throw it away, even though I don't like to waste fabric. Now I'm going to open this up, and I am going to measure to see, to get it to 16 inches. Now, I can see right here that this edge is off a little, so I'm going to move this closer to me, and I'll take my ruler. I know both edges, top and bottom, are squared or straight. I'm going to put one of the black lines on my ruler, measure it to the bottom of my fabric. Again, now I'm going to cut right-handed. I'm going to take my 3 fingers and put it on the ruler like this, and my 2 fingers on the mat and fabric together. I'm going to hold it down. Now, I cut sitting down. I can't stand for a long time because I have issues with my back, my knees, my blah, 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 blah. So, I have my table and my chair adjusted so that I could sit down comfortably and not have a hard time cutting. In case you were wondering, you'll see a lot of people on YouTube that stand up and cut. I unfortunately cannot. So you can see right here that I need to make this edge even. So I'm going to take my rotary cutter and swipe it up. Close it, put it to the side, pull out my little piece and throw it away. Now you can see that I have 1, 2, 3 edges that are straight. Now I'm going to line it up to a black line, and I'm going to count 16 boxes. Each box equals an inch. On my mat is delineated into a full inch, a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and it's every 1/4 inch has a line. I want 16 boxes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I am at my 16 mark. I'm going to cut left-handed because I don't want my fabric to be flipping around if I put the ruler on this side. I'm going to put it on this side. Again, I'm going to measure up my ruler, one of the black lines of my ruler, to my fabric. Make sure that I have it equally on this line. I'm going to make sure, sorry if you see my head, I'm going to make sure that my ruler, my line is straight, my ruler's straight. Again, with the 3 fingers, the 2 fingers out here, holding down firmly, opening up my rotary cutter, and slice up. Close, put it down. And you see you have a really nice, clean edge. So now I have a strip here that is 2.5 by 16. So let's move on. So now my fabric is calling for me to make some squares, and I want to make a 3.5 inch square. So I'm going to cut that from my yardage. I want to make sure that the side that I'm cutting from, which is the right, I want to make sure that this edge is straight. So I'm going to take my longer ruler, and I believe that this is a 12.5 or 13.5, 12.5, 14, something like that. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's a 13-inch ruler. I'm going to line up the bottom edge of my ruler, and let me pull this fabric up so you can see it. The bottom edge of my ruler to the natural straight line, which is made with the fold. I want to make sure that I line up that fold to a black line on my grid. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can. I'm going to line up the edge of my ruler to the bottom, and I am going to just move it over a smidge, and I'm sorry if my head's in the way. Again, I'm going to use that same principle of 3 fingers on the ruler, 2 fingers off on the fabric or the mat. I'm going to cut off a really skinny slice of fabric. I'm going to make sure that it's straight. And here you go. I've got a little piece of fabric, and now my fabric is straight on the right side. So I want 3.5, correct? That's what we said, 3.5 inch squares. So instead of cutting little squares, I'm going to cut a strip that is 3.5 inches long. And I'm going to show you a very interesting way of doing this. I'm going to use the 2 ruler method. I learned this from one of the YouTubers, and it's pretty smart. So you see here, let's see, I've got a ruler, and it's 1, 2, 3, and right here is the half. I'm going to line the ruler up, the bottom of the ruler, to the bottom edge of the fold, which is a natural straight line, and then the 3.5 right here. So I'm going to hold this down. Let me adjust this so that you can see it a little bit better. There you go. So now the bottom of the ruler to the fold, which is a natural straight line. Hold it down, and then I'm going to bring my other ruler and butt it up very closely, butt it up right next to this ruler. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my fingers, again, 3 on the ruler, nowhere near the cutting edge, and 2 on the fabric. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to slide this ruler all the way up to make sure that I'm getting a 3.5 inch cut all the way up. And it looks like I might have a little bit more than 3.5 inches up here. So let me just adjust my ruler just a bit. Adjust my ruler, adjust my fabric just a bit, so that I have a 3.5 inch cut. Oops, I moved it to way too much. 3.5 inch cut right there. 3.5 inch, I'll slide my ruler all the way down, and there you go. I have a 3.5 inch cut up and down. Okay, 3 fingers on the ruler, 2 fingers on the fabric. Open up my rotary cutter, and I'm going to slice up. Close my rotary cutter, pull it apart. Now I have a 3.5 inch piece of fabric that I'm now going to make into 3.5 inch squares. I fold up my other fabric, put it to the side. Now make sure that you have your fabric ironed out. You don't have any creases or wrinkles. Now I'm going to show you how to cut fabric when it's folded in half, how it comes from the store off the bolt, and folded in half again. if you have a very nicely sharpened rotary cutter that has really sharpened blade, you will do fine. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the selvages, which are on this side, because that's how I folded it, and the folded edge of the fabric. Again, 3 fingers on my ruler, 2 fingers off onto the fabric or the mat. Open my rotary cutter and slice up. Close, put it down, throw it away. Now, I'm going to move my fabric up to this line, to a line right here, to a line on your grid, and line up the bottom of my fabric to the horizontal line on the grid. Sorry, I act like I can't speak. I'm going to use the 2 ruler method again. I'm making a 3.5 inch, and because I have all these great rulers that I've been collecting, I'm going to put the one ruler that's a little bit skinnier and easier for me to control with the black line at the bottom of my straight fabric right here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm measuring out 3.5 by sliding my ruler up. Okay, up and down, it's 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5. You see right here? 1, 2, 3.5. Let me see if you could see that a little bit better. Right there. 1, 2, 3.5. You see I slide it, it goes up. It's 3.5 all the way up. So I've got my 3 fingers on the ruler, my 2 fingers back here. Oops. Let's see if I can do it without these 2 right here. Okay. Open up my rotary cutter. Slice. Now I've got a 3.5 by 3.5 inch square. I want to cut this whole piece of fabric that way, so I'm going to again put my ruler up to 3.5, butt up my ruler right here, 3.5. Do it here. Now another way, if you don't want to use the two ruler method, because I want to cut on this side, I'm going to put my straight edge to the left, and I'm going to do 3.5 this way. Actually, can use a larger ruler. That's going to be 3.5. Let's see if I can find the 3.5 mark right there. This is 1, 2, 3.5. Put my ruler, see right here, 1, 2, 3.5 is right here. Put my ruler, again we're doing the 3-finger method. It feels like you're stretching your hand, and I'm sorry for those of you that might have a little bit of arthritis and you're not able to do that. There are grippers that you can buy, and if I can find the picture, I'll attach it to the end of this scene, where you could, it looks like one of those grab bars that you put on the wall for people to get in and out of the bathrooms, and you can hold it down if you can't spread your fingers out. I don't want anybody to hurt themselves because they're following what I'm saying, because really for me, because I have something called trigger fingers, this is really bothering my fingers, and I do have a little arthritis, but that's here nor there. So hold it down. You're at the 3.5 inch marking with your ruler. Open up your rotary cutter and slide up. And now I have a 3.5 inch square that I'm going to put into my pile right there. And now I have these 2 pieces. The bottom one is not as even as the top one, and I might be able to get away with using this as a 3.5 incher as well. So let me put my ruler, 3.5 inch. Let's see if I can make sure my fabrics are lined up very carefully. Measure twice, cut once is the motto, is a quilter's motto. Measure twice, cut once. So I can get 2 more pieces of 3.5 from here. I'm going to hold this down, open up my rotary cutter, measure twice, 1, 2, 3.5, and I'm going to cut once. Slice up, close my cutter, and throw my pieces of fabric away. So now I have squares. It almost scared me. I didn't think they were even. So now I've got my squares. They are 3.5 inches square, and this is going to go with whatever my pattern is calling for. And I've got my piece of fabric, which is 2.5 inches by 16. So I hope that this was a very simplistic way to show you how to cut fabric. You can cut any sizes. And here's that photo I was telling you that I was going to show you about the gripper. Thanks for watching. My name is Liz. We are at EMO's Creative Studio, where anything you create is beautiful because you created it. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Come visit me at emosliz@facebook.com. Until the next time, happy quilting. Bye.